Good morning and welcome to another edition of United Ways for Southeastern Michigan's What's the Word Wednesday, where we share important resources and have vibrant discussions about topics that matter to you. My name is Audrey Walker, and today we are going to talk about the importance of outdoor recreation and connecting to the land around us. A few reminders for today's discussion. We hope to have time for a few questions from our audience. So please put your questions in the chat box on Zoom or the comments section if you're watching on Facebook. The closed captions are enabled in Zoom and Facebook Live, and to turn them on, please, excuse me, click on the Show Captions button at the bottom of your screen. So we are in the middle of summer, which is an important time of the year for outdoor exploration and becoming one with nature with activities like hiking, fishing, camping, and so much more. And while many of us enjoy outdoor recreation, people of color have been historically excluded or underrepresented in natural spaces. Now, many Black nature lovers enjoy, including our speaker today, are creating safe spaces for the Black community to enjoy the outdoors and reap the benefits it has to offer. And I'm so excited to introduce you to our speaker today. Ian Solomon is an Emmy award-winning journalist, artist, and outdoorsman from Detroit, Michigan. In 2020, Ian founded Amplify Outside, a community organization with a mission to increase access, infrastructure, and representation of Black Michiganders in Michigan's natural spaces. Ian also hosts a PBS program with Great Lakes Now called Ian Outside, where he amplifies recreational and environmental stories around the Great Lakes. Ian received his MFA in photography from the Cranbrook Academy of Art in May of 2024 and is currently residing on the east side of Detroit, working as the communications and engagement manager for the Detroit Parks Coalition. So welcome, Ian. Thank you so much for being here with us today and sharing more about Amplify Outside.
Thank you so much, Audrey. I'm really happy to be here. Right. So as Audrey said, I founded Amplify Outside a few years ago. Really it kind of came out of nowhere because I was just exploring the outdoors a lot and I was making that connection for myself. And I was doing it kind of publicly, and a lot of people were reaching out to me and saying, hey, where are you going? How are you doing it? And it just kind of showed me a gap in knowledge of just how to engage with the natural spaces around us. So I want to start with a quick land recognition. So I'd like to acknowledge this land as belonging to primarily the Ojibwa, Ottawa, and Potawatomi tribes. We offer blessings to all the past, current, and future generations and thank them for their stewardship of that land that holds us today. So land is at the center of racism, class disparities, and colonialism. One of the reasons I got involved into journalism, or the primary reason, was for kind of a political lens. I was actually a congressional reporter in Washington, D.C. for a little bit. And I recognized that the outdoors, that land, kind of was at the center of all of these things I was researching and attacking. And I thought that, wow, how lucky are we that this is some important work to get done, but it can also be done in a way that feels really fun and really good. So Amplify Outside was really this project of using outdoor recreation as a vehicle for environmental justice and more community political work. So one of the ways we started, outside of just like making a lot of videos like, hey, here's how you go here, and breaking down the mileage, the amount of gas, and all the amenities, I realized that we needed some data. That journalism background came in, and knowing that data is always power, and that I couldn't find any data that was specifically about Black Michiganders and their relationship to land. So in 2022, we launched a survey and it received hundreds of responses, and we got a lot of really good information. And that's really when the ball started getting rolling. So I pulled out just a couple of data points that were interesting to me, or that really stood out to me. So one of the first ones was how interested in you in outdoor recreation. And We had 85% people say very interested. And obviously, there's this false narrative of Black Americans not wanting to connect to the land or not wanting to go camp or outdoor recreation. It's very often said that that is like white people stuff, right? But here we have clear data that says, hey, that's not true. At least almost 100% of people that took this survey were at least somewhat interested in the outdoors. And you can mirror that with that next question, which is how accessible does the outdoors feel to you? We want everyone to feel as accessible to the outdoors as they want it to be. So the fact that only 31% felt that the outdoors was very accessible to them versus 85% wanting the outdoors to feel very accessible to them, we can see the disparities in this data, and that really just highlighted the work to be done. So another question to really attack that narrative, right, that Black Americans aren't interested, I wanted to ask about comfortability levels and also just, gauge how people felt about connecting to the land and the space. So how comfortable do you feel outdoors? Most people feel very comfortable outdoors, which of course completely dismantles that narrative that that's not something that Black Americans or Black Michiganders are interested in. Another 23% said somewhat. So only 10% of people said they don't feel that comfortable outdoors, which relatively isn't a lot, but I would love to see that be 0%. So it shows that there's work to be done, but it also shows that the narratives that's being pushed about that work isn't necessarily true. And then I wanted to know specifically about tent camping, because tent camping, of course, is a whole of connection. Like it's one thing to go hiking. It's another thing to, go kayaking, but to say, hey, I'm going to go to a field and pitch a tent, sleep in it, wake up and really connect. That just shows a different level of eagerness to connect to outdoor spaces. And so I wanted to ask that question. And nearly 70% of people were interested in sleeping in a tent outside. So again, breaking down that false narrative that this isn't something that Black Americans are interested in or that it's something that they're afraid of. There's a lot of eagerness to connect. The access is where the problem comes in. So a part of access is representation. So as mentioned, I do host a show with Great Lakes Now PBS called Ian Outside. I'm so grateful to do that work because there aren't a lot of people of color on TV doing this type of work. So when asked if Black Michiganders feel represented by any outdoor recreation-based media, 93% of people said no. And obviously that is a huge problem. Representation isn't everything, but it's a very critical first step because people at least need to be able to imagine themselves in these spaces. So I'm really grateful to be a part of doing that work, and that's something that I'd love for Amplify Outside to do more of, is to introduce more diverse stories of environmental justice, outdoor recreation, what have you. Another big thing was, does racism affect Black Michiganders' willingness to explore Michigan? And again, we have the majority of this of yes, right? And when I first started Amplify Outside and first started this survey, we were in another election season cycle, right? 2020. And there are a lot of political signs like Trump, and Trump signs aren't necessarily welcoming to people of color. And so when you think about what it means to go to these outdoor spaces and see these giant Trump signs, does that make a person of color feel comfortable in that space? And a lot of times it's no. And a lot of times you do have, unfortunately, poor experiences with other races in these places. So this is something that, Amplify Outside cannot solve racism, but it is important to recognize that this is an issue. This is something that people are concerned about, and have open dialogue about how do we remediate this. And a lot of the answers to that were really community, going out together, feeling safe together, and feeling confident in the information you have on the space that you're in. So we are, well, at least I am in Detroit. Most of us are probably in some sort of Metro Detroit. And you're going to think of that as an urban space, but we are also in Detroit, Michigan. And one of the things that I love to do is make sure that Detroiters understand that as much as Detroit is their home, the rest of Michigan is too, and we have to take stake in those spaces. So this is just an array of pictures that I've taken across Michigan to really drive home. Obviously, none of this looks like the city of Detroit, but all of it is still our home, or if you're in Metro Detroit as well. And I find that one of the things that really drives this point home of connection is showing people these really like jaw-dropping, awe-inspiring places that are in their home state. So for Metro Detroiters, I got top four trips for you that are like easy if I had to choose. The first one is Lakeport State Park. That is going to be on Lake Huron. And if you're in Detroit or the Metro Detroit area, it's no more than really an hour away. And you're at a great lake. There's forest to hike through. There's beautiful, clear water. It's one of my favorite places to go. I always say if you have three open hours in your day, you can make a trip to Lake Huron and have a good time. Another great one is PJ Hoffmaster State Park, which is a little further on Lake Michigan. But I really love this one, because it is a great display of Lake Michigan dunes, and it has beautiful hikes through these foresty dunes and leads you out to the water. But you also have to go through Grand Rapids, which, if you're looking for a day date, if you're hanging out with somebody, want to show them, sunrise to sunset day, going to PJ Hoffmaster State Park, having a great beach day, coming back through Grand Rapids, having some of the great food there, and coming home has always been one of my favorite days. So a little closer to Metro Detroit. A lot of people know about Kensington Metro Park. That's a popular one. Lesser known is what's right next to Kensington Metro Park, which is Island Lake Recreation Area. So that's on the southern side of I-96. And what I love about Island Lake is it just feels a little bit more wildernessy. Kensington is amazing, and it's very well, like there's amenities everywhere, and it's very well paved, and the trails are everywhere. But Island Lake kind of gives you that little more like you're in the forest deep vibes, like you're on a dirt trail. You're seeing a lot of different landscape. And it's also amazing for kayaking. And both Kensington and Lake have opportunities to kayak and engage in outdoor recreation in pretty accessible ways. So like renting a kayak nearby and not having to own one your own. And of course, Belle Isle. I live right by Belle Isle. I'm obsessed with it. I don't think you can talk about it enough. It's an island park that is the size of, actually bigger than Central Park. Not a lot of people know that Belle Isle is huge, and there's been over the years a lot of new trails put in. So if you've been to Belle Isle and maybe hang out on the sides near the road, but have never taken the trail through the forest or the trail to the lighthouse, I highly recommend it. It's just so simple and so beautiful. So yeah, why get outside? Just, to wrap it all up, improved mental health. It is just amazing to connect to the outdoors, to get fresh air, to kind of lay on the lawn and just pay attention to a leaf for 5 minutes. That is just critical for us. Like we're all humans, we're all of the earth. We're all supposed to have that connection. And then you have that passive improved physical health where you're just walking around enjoying your day, but you're also getting some great cardio in, you're building some leg muscles. It's one of those things where, sometimes going to the gym sucks, but if you're able to just walk around a beautiful, island park for a couple miles, that's a great way to get your body working and enjoy yourself as well. Spiritual connection. I'm a spiritual person, and earth and land and stewardship is all very spiritual. And you can have a great experience sitting on the water, just watching some waves come in and really meditating. And I think the outdoors is the perfect place for meditating because there's just so many things to pay attention to passively. Um, Another one is strengthened community. So that was one of the things I didn't even expect. And connecting to land was just how much community I've gotten from it. You start connecting to other people who have these same interests. Something like camping, what I tell people all the time, what you're really doing is coming somewhere in a space and you're building a village for 48 hours and tearing it back down. And that's just such an incredible community building experience that kind of goes unspoken, and what it means when everyone's there having fun, but also playing a role to keep a space for utilization for you guys to, enjoy it and survive. Represent your community. If when you get outside, other people see that you're getting outside, and you can post that story or you can post it on Instagram, and just showing people that, you're a person of color or anyone outside typically does inspire them too as well. And last but not least, it's really fun. We talked about a lot of politics here and this and that, and outside of it all, it's really a fun experience. And I think we could all use a lot of fun these days. So yeah, get outside. It's waiting for you.
Love that. And you can tell that you're having a lot of fun with this, and also with your organization, Amplify Outside. And just want to appreciate you sharing about that and outdoor recreation. And we'd love to get some questions from the audience. So again, if you're watching on Zoom or on Facebook, you can leave the questions in the comments or in the chat. I really appreciate you talking about breaking down the false narrative around who's outside, who wants to be outside, and what that looks like, especially with all your data. And just had a question for you as you were talking about creating community. How do you see us fostering more community in this space, and what are some things that people can do to do that?
Well, I can say there's so many organizations out here, and I think that's what's really inspiring is that if you do a little research or look up any type of environmental justice, something in Detroit, there's something there. So one of the organizations that I always like to plug is Black to the Land Coalition. They post a lot of different events that are focused on environmental justice and outdoor recreation. That kayak picture I posted from Island Lake is actually from one of their kayak events they had a couple weeks ago. It's always an incredible time to connect the community. Everyone's so nice and everyone's interested in the same thing. So Black to the Land Coalition is a great one. Amplify Outside, of course, shares things from different organizations, but there's bird watching communities, there's morning walk communities. There's a lot of them. You kind of just have to find one, and you kind of it kind of turns into a rabbit hole. You see them tag another one online and tag another one. You go to an event, they go, oh, I've run this organization. So baby steps getting there, but there's definitely some great organizations out there just waiting for more people.
Mm-hmm. And what resources do you know of that might be available for someone with limited mobility, navigating trails and other features of parks and being outside?
Definitely. So that's one of the things we've been talking about actually at the Detroit Parks Coalition is, there are like Belle Isle, for example, there are paved trails. So through the forest, that's a completely paved asphalt trail. So someone who may be a wheelchair user may not have the agility for a more rugged trail can use that. Unfortunately, there really isn't like a lot of online, like a lot of specifically like talking about accessibility in the outdoors, and that's something we've been addressing lately. But I will say, if you go to most parks websites, you can typically find, and it'll say like paved trail. It'll also have like bathrooms available. So it does take a little more work. There's definitely not it's not where I or anyone would like it to be as far as accessibility goes, and getting that word out there. But when you look it up, look for paved trails, look for bathrooms, things like that, that just make it more accessible.
Yeah. And kind of along those lines a little bit, just speaking about what to think about while you are, um, enjoying the great outdoors, is do you have some safety tips that you can share with us along, like maybe what to bring or what to consider? Well, maybe if you're just getting started kind of doing some things, or maybe that's what's been holding you back from exploring a little bit more around the state.
Absolutely. I mean, food and water every time, no matter how short the hike is or how well fed or well hydrated you are, always bring water, always bring a little snack or something like that.
Okay.
Besides that, layers are always great. So you may go somewhere where there may be bugs or ticks. If you can have a thin layer that feels comfortable to wear, even though it's still warm, that's always great. And like I kind of mentioned before, as far as, feeling unsafe in a space, community is really great. So if you can find even one friend to go with you, that makes whatever you're doing outside infinitely safer.
Hmm.
Because if you fall, if you're just feeling generally unsafe on your own, like you just have another person there, and that can mean the world. So food, water, layers if you can, long socks. So, ticks or, something scratches up against your leg. And, if you're able to, getting hiking boots, things that can really support your ankles in those like hiking spaces.
And do you have any favorite places to get some of your like outdoor wear or supplies?
Definitely. Well, Moose Jaw, not a lot of people know Moose Jaw is actually a Michigan-based company, so I always love working with them. Their headquarters are actually in Madison Heights, and they've given Amplify Outside some equipment before in the past. So Moose Jaw is a great one. REI, of course, is always there. And if you're in the Detroit area and you're looking for outdoor equipment, not necessarily clothing, but just equipment in general, there is an organization called Detroit Outdoors that I encourage everyone to look up, and they have a massive shed of tons and tons of camping equipment that is just available for anyone to really rent out. Not a lot of people know about that, but they host great events, and they have a lot of resources.
Oh, that's awesome. Because I know a lot of times people say, like, if you're starting a hobby or wanting to try something new, it's great to try to be able to do it at kind of like that lowest entry level point.
Mhm.
So being able to, borrow equipment or find equipment through an organization like that, I'm sure is super helpful with that as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Um, and you shared a lot of great outdoor spots in Michigan. I know I was making some notes here when you shared that, but what are some of your favorite outdoor activities that you would recommend?
Ooh, I really love kayaking. I think it's something that's a lot easier than people think, and it's just a really special experience if you've never kayaked, like that experience of being in the water and kind of flowing with tides and waves and everything. That's one of my favorites. And if you're more adventurous, I would really recommend trying ice climbing. It sounds way harder than it is. Sounds and looks way harder than it is, which is cool because you look really cool doing it and you're not actually doing that much. But yeah, if you can go up north and like you have the time, space, and interest in something like that, I would highly recommend it.
So for kayaking, do you have a favorite spot you recommend, or is there a place that, people could check out that seems like it would be an easy place to get started with that?
Definitely. There's a couple places across Metro Detroit. So one of the easiest places is Kensington and Island Lake Recreation Park. So they have like kayak rentals available there, where you can go up to the shop, rent a kayak, and get right on the water. So that's super simple. Belle Isle typically has some type of kayak rental. You kind of got to look up the times, but that's always an option. And then if you're anywhere near Ann Arbor or willing to go to Ann Arbor has like at least three separate businesses that will help you get to and from like a kayak point on the Huron River, I believe it is. Yeah, Huron River.
Mhm.
That are super simple, super affordable. Me and a group of family just did it a couple weeks ago, where we all just like kayaked down the river for a couple hours. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's great because sometimes I think people, when you're always thinking about something, you're like, oh, I'd love to do that, but I don't even have like an idea of where to get started or where I could go. So definitely appreciate all these suggestions for those things. And something else I was curious about too is, you know, you mentioned environmental justice and things along those lines. Are there any current issues related to the environment that you would like to highlight for our audience?
sure. I mean, so many, so many. I would say the two pressing ones. I mean, I'll give you three pressing ones actually. So, as far as like urban goes, really paying attention to like emissions from auto plants and just the different industries in Southeast Michigan. There's a lot of things happening in the background where a lot of regulations are being loosened up or attempted to be loosened up for emissions. And yeah, I would just say like look it up and pay attention to it. You may be in an area that's affected by it, and that's something you definitely want to know about. So just look up, yeah, industry emissions, Southeast Michigan, if you're curious. Another one is Line 5 in the Great Lakes, which is an oil pipeline that actually goes pretty much right alongside Mackinac Bridge. That should not be there at all, in my opinion. We have 20% of the world's fresh water, if you didn't know, and that oil pipeline puts all of that in jeopardy, and it's not being kept up. And I would say the last thing is It got shot down a little bit, but there's still some things happening where there's a copper mine or trying to start a new copper mine in the UP in the Porcupine Mountains, which is an absolutely gorgeous area and a terrible place to put a copper mine because if anything happens, there's elevation and everything spills right into Lake Superior, which again is an incredible source of fresh water that we all need in Michigan or not. So those are the three things I would name for now.
Okay. And I know we put links to everything in the chat here too, to be able to see your full episodes of Great Lakes Now and to be able to subscribe on YouTube and things along those lines. And I was just curious if you have a favorite episode that you've done of that show that you'd like to share with us that maybe we could get started watching, because I know I want to learn more and excited to hear more from you about these topics.
Absolutely. So, two that got Emmy nominated were the ice climbing, which won. And ice climbing was super fun. But my favorite one was actually the one where we went to Isle Royal, which is an island in Lake Superior. And we were there for a couple days and we studied. It has the longest study of moose and wolf populations in the world there. And so we got to meet up with the scientists that have been doing it for 50 years and backpack across the island. We saw multiple moose and it's all on camera. So that's my favorite episode just because it's a great episode and also the experience itself for me was amazing.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Before we wrap it up here too, I just wanted to ask you. Oh, first of all, we have a question about, does Amplify Outside have any upcoming events that we can get involved with?
Oh, yes. Sorry, I meant to mention that. So this Thursday, actually, in collaboration with Black to the Land Coalition and other environmental justice organizations, Detroit at Motor City Wine, there will be what's called a Black, Brown, and Green meetup. So, like, if you're a person of color, Black or Brown, and you're interested in environmental justice, outdoor recreation, it's basically just a networking meetup at Motor City Wine this Thursday at
So
6.
that's tomorrow, right?
Yep, that's
Okay.
tomorrow. Thanks for saying that because I was thinking days out. But also, please check out Amplify Outside's Instagram as well as Black to the Land Coalition's Instagram. We post things as they come. Sometimes with weather, events kind of change and they'll pop up
Mhm.
out of nowhere. It's that like, we all kind of will start an event 3 days before, and people come out. But just keep up to date, and we hope to have an event soon.
That's great. And I did see another question. I know we were talking about barriers and access. Do you have any suggestions for people with transportation barriers in terms of getting to experience all the wonders of outside that we have available?
Definitely. Well, the first answer is always going to be community. Like, does someone in your community have a car? Can you carpool? Is that something you can strategize with someone else? Don't always have to do it alone. The second answer is going to be try and utilize your parks in your area. And if there is public transportation there, I think we'd be surprised about how much is really in our backyards. I know like Rouge Park in Belle Isle, Palmer Park are all these parks that have fantastic, really like special forests actually. Like Palmer Park in Detroit is an old growth forest, a completely virgin, untouched land. So that's really special. And you're not going to find that a lot of places. So really utilizing like the urban parks and not underestimating just how outside you can feel in them.
And then as we wrap up here, I would just like to ask, is there anything else that you'd like us to know as we're closing that you'd like to leave us with today?
Nothing much other than, I hope that this was helpful. I hope that people are inspired to get outside. And like I said, recreation is amazing and it's fun and it should really act as a vehicle to, intentional environmental justice work. If you're in Michigan, you're a Michigan resident. We have 20% of the world's fresh water. We're in a climate crisis. Like you're an important citizen in an important place. So use this opportunity to connect in a fun way to, have what you need when it's ready to take stake for resources and have a seat at the table and advocate for your community and your environment.
Great. Well, I really appreciate that. Thanks so much for joining us today and answering our questions about outdoor recreation. And before we close, I do have a few more updates for our audience. So as always, I'd like to remind everyone about if you're experiencing a need, our 211 helpline remains available 24 hours a day. 7 days a week and includes resources to connect you with food, utility assistance, and much more. We always maintain a running list of services in the community and can connect you to the support you need. You can also look up resources in your area by using our 211 resource database at unitedwaysem.org/211. We have an upcoming event that we would love you to be a part of. It is our virtual marathon called Run United. And we are supporting local students returning to school. And we would love for you to join us between August 12th and September 13th. You can run, walk, roll, and this goes perfect with getting outside. 26.2 miles over the course of 30 days while raising funds for students in the fall. So Run United is open to all ages and abilities, and we'd love for you to register. The link is unitedwaysem.org/Run United. We did have somebody canoe one year, all their miles. And if you are a podcast fan, I'd encourage you to check out our Washtenaw United weekly radio segment on WEMU. The partnership features the leaders and organizations who are creating opportunity and promoting equity in Washtenaw County. And listen to Heather Martin, founding director of Youth Arts Alliance, discuss the mental health benefits and creative activities of the Summer of the Heart program. And just so you know, a change is coming to our town halls, and we cannot wait to share it with you. So stay tuned to our summer town halls to hear more about continuing to share resources, uplift partners, and have vibrant discussions with our community. And stay tuned for our August town halls coming up. You can stay updated on all of our upcoming topics and watch replays of previous town halls. Please visit unitedwaysem.org/virtual town halls. And I want to thank everyone for joining us today. We hope to see you soon. Thanks to our town hall production team, and stay to live united.